Sydney Sweeney has been a topic of conversation a great deal since the American Eagle ad that she was in went viral. And we've talked about it quite a lot on this program. I am quoted in today's New York Times in a story where they attempt to claim that no one on the left actually was bothered by the Sydney Sweeney ad. And in reality, this was just a made-up story. That's what the New York Times says. And I'm quoted in that article. I mentioned that I talked with them. But I actually think this is an interesting angle that the New York Times took. And I think that because it requires them to acknowledge that they're wrong. But they didn't acknowledge that they were wrong. They said, oh, there isn't anybody on the left that is actually bothered by the Sydney Sweeney American Eagle ad. This was all just manufactured outrage. There is no basis for this story to have ever existed. Well, this is interesting, isn't it? They're not trying to argue anymore, oh, those crazy left-wing voices are representative of the Democrat Party. They're trying to now argue you didn't see and you didn't hear all of the things that you thought you saw and that you thought you heard. The reality is this is just a manufactured story. Why would they do that? Why would they do an entire article? I talked to the writers in the New York Times for probably 20 minutes. Why would they do an entire article about a story that they claim is not really a story? Because they are getting smoked in the world of pop culture right now. And I think this is indicative of a massive shift that we are seeing not only take place in the worlds of politics, but in the worlds of culture, which I would argue are maybe even more influential. Sydney Sweeney moves to Florida, registers as a Republican, decides, hey, I'm going to be in a jeans ad for a company like American Eagle, and we're going to refer to me as having good genes, Jeans, and jeans, Genes. And rather than say, okay, that's fine, blonde hair, blue-eyed girl selling apparel, 30% of America is white girls. It's not crazy that there would be an attractive white woman in a jeans ad. Left loses their mind. They're threatened culturally by a girl who's in her 20s, is a registered Republican, and is willing to say, hey, I'm pretty, and I'm going to sell ads. And I'm going to sell products based on my attractiveness. Which, by the way, is basically the entire basis of the influencer economy. Everybody likes to pick on all the girls on Instagram who are walking around in their spandex outfits and they're holding up their, I don't know. I'm not healthy enough to even know what they sell. Producer Allie, you can let me know. They eat like the yogurts. This is going to be a good clip. I'm not even healthy enough to know what healthy, attractive young women eat. I think they eat the yogurt. I think they eat some smoothies. A lot of them don't eat. Anyway, they're all really good looking and they walk around and they're like, basically, if you want to be as good looking as me, then you should buy this product. Allie, you can tell me what attractive influencers sell. To me, it seems to be basically yoga pants and smoothies. And everybody buys them. And everybody makes fun of the influencers. But I actually think you should make fun of the people who respond to the influencers. The influencers are smart. Justin Bieber's wife, is it Hailey? Hailey Bieber sold a 3-year-old makeup company for $1 billion just in the last couple of months. I don't know who Hailey Bieber is. I don't know how makeup works. I don't know how anything makeup works. I had this is actually pretty funny. I had like something on the corner of my eye that was messed up. And I was going to be doing television. I was like, I think people might see this. And my wife and all of her team, they were like, every woman can talk about makeup. I've never heard something talked about where I had no clue. They might as well have been speaking Mandarin Chinese. I had no earthly idea what they were talking about. Foundation, base, color, palette, all these. I have no idea. I have no idea how any of this stuff works. But Hailey Bieber sells $1 billion makeup company, and everybody wants to make fun of Kim Kardashian and Hailey Bieber and all these influencers on down the flowchart. If you want to make fun of somebody, make fun of the people that are buying their products. Selling something that people buy is basically the foundation of capitalism. I don't see anything wrong with what they're doing. But the American Eagle had a choice. American Eagle had a choice when everybody decided they ran the Good Morning America ad and they said, this is Nazism, this is eugenics, this is Hitlerian. By the way, funny, a lot of young men on Twitter, they started referring, you know what they were calling Sydney Sweeney in the wake of the left saying that she was Hitler-like and this was Nazi and eugenics? They started calling her Adolf Hitler. And I got to be honest with you, the humor of young men on social media is starting to save the culture of the country, because I'll tell you, every 14 and 15-year-old boy in America decides what their sense of humor is, and every man for the rest of his life basically has the same sense of humor as a 14 and 15-year-old boy. Every grandpa who's 75 right now, he just laughed at Adolf Hitler. I guarantee you he did. And if he didn't, it's because he's trying to pretend to the woman in the car with him that he's actually more mature than he actually is. They're calling her Adolf Hitler in response. That is genius. It's really funny. But American Eagle had a decision. Do they stand behind Adolf Hitler, a.k.a. Sydney Sweeney, or do they do what so many media companies and so many advertising companies and so many different media outlets have done for so long? Do they issue that apology and kind of step back? Last night, American Eagle took over the Sphere, which is the really wildly revolutionary concert venue that exists out in Las Vegas. If you travel, it looks like a big eye. You've probably seen it on social media. All night long, they ran American Eagle Sydney Sweeney ads of her in her jeans. They have said, we're not going to allow these left-wing lunatic losers to dictate the choices that we are making. They didn't do to Sydney Sweeney what was done to Grant Napier 5 years ago. When somebody gets a little bit controversial, they cancel them, they put them on the sidelines, they run and hide from them. Simultaneous with that, Sydney Sweeney is on the big Sphere. I'm in Atlanta right now. Thank you to our affiliate down here, Extra 106.3. I am basically right next door to the Atlanta Braves, where, by the way, Major League Baseball didn't officially apologize, but they showed right back up here with the All-Star game, which was a direct response in many ways to the lies told by the Biden administration about the voting rights bill in Georgia. They brought the All-Star game here. There wasn't a hint of complaint. The left-wingers like Stacey Abrams and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, who had all argued, this is Jim Crow, this is Jim Eagle, this is modern-day Confederacy in the state of Georgia where I am right now, they shot it all down. That connects also to what I was seeing last night. Watch the Braves. While I'm watching the Braves, awful season for the Braves, by the way, great organization. I'm scrolling through, and I start to see going viral as the kids are returning to college campuses, tens of millions of views for these SEC sorority girls dressed up in patriotic colors, celebrating the United States as a way to recruit freshman girls to join their sorority. And I just thought Sydney Sweeney, Atlanta Braves All-Star game, and now SEC sororities. America is back. Being proud to be an American is back. Culturally, we are winning. The New York Times is writing articles claiming that nobody's actually offended by Sydney Sweeney because they know they're on the wrong side of these issues, and so they claim the issue doesn't exist anymore. I'm starting to hear from people out there who were totally silent when I was speaking out against men and women's sports that are now saying, I don't know why you're still talking about this. Well, I'm still talking about it because it's still happening. And the reason you don't want to talk about it anymore is because you're wrong. You lost. We are winning across the cultural landscape, politics, business, sports, movies, all of it is moving in the direction of sanity and repudiating everything by and large that has happened over the last 7 or 8 years. And I understand how some of you may be skeptical, some of you may not be seeing it or feeling it, but even the New York Times is pretending this cultural battle isn't even happening, because otherwise they would have to acknowledge that they're getting their ass kicked and that people are turning their back on the whole woke universe. And not only turning their back on it, working hard to completely reverse it. Politics is downstream from culture. That's why I've been arguing now is the time to add on more steam, to truly make a difference. Bottom of the hour, I think this is even starting to impact the biggest movies that are out there. Superman didn't have the success that it would have, in my opinion, if the moron director of Superman had not come out and said it's about immigration and it's a political movie. I really think we are starting to see a return to sanity and consequences for those who interject politics into every fabric of American life. And that, my friends, is something to be very, very happy about as we're rolling into this weekend. Now, look, a lot of you out there are heads of households. You're the mom or the dad or the grandma or the grandpa that's making a lot of decisions out there for your family. You might be even already thinking about Thanksgiving, thinking about Christmas. And maybe you're thinking about, hey, how do I get everybody to come to Christmas? Because we got different family members that are mad at each other. If you're the peacemaker in your family, if you're the individuals that try to bring everybody together, have you thought about what would happen if you weren't there for Thanksgiving, if you weren't there for Christmas? Have you thought about the fights that might ensue if you weren't there to help stop them from happening? I bet every mom out there listening has. I bet every dad out there listening has. I bet every grandma and grandpa out there listening has. Well, have you thought about the fights that might ensue if you don't tell your kids and grandkids exactly what you want when you're not here anymore? That's the whole purpose of trust and wills. And I get it's an uncomfortable conversation to have because you have to sit around and say, hey, one day I'm not going to be here. So far, to my knowledge, we have not had a lot of success when it comes to immortality. And so sooner or later, every single one of us, as much as we think we matter, we're not going to be here to solve problems. We're not going to be here to make decisions. And would you like to try to make the final decision one that your family knows exactly what you want? That's the entire purpose of trusts and wills. I've got both. Buck has got both. We have families. Why do you not go ahead and take care of your family like you struggle and fight to do every single day with your final decisions? Go right now. You don't need a lawyer. You can save 20%. It's very easy to walk through. trustandwill.com/Clay. They're experts in creating personalized trust and wills that will protect your legacy. That's trustandwill.com/Clay. One more time, trustandwill.com/Clay.